This is CXO Secrets, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of business and technology leaders and reveals the strategies behind their success. Coming up in today's show.
I think the next stage of CISO is really being an orchestrator, right? A CISO is really a person who can orchestrate really well because they have that view already through the existing programs or the existing protection, enablement, empowerment that they already run. So I think a CISO's role is really orchestrating, bringing everybody together because no one human or no one team can solve this challenge.
CXO Secrets is powered by EDS, going beyond connections. Find out about upcoming C-level events, experiences, and insights at edsxevents.com. Radhika Bajpai, CISO at Russell Investments. Welcome to CXO Secrets.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for having me today.
And where in the world are you joining us from today, Radhika? And, well, it's Friday as we record. What has your work week looked like so far?
Yes, no, thank you for asking me about that. I'm joining here from New York City, Upper East Side in Manhattan, to be precise. Oh, yeah. Summer season going on here in New York, which is awesome. Summer is, the city just looks beautiful during summer season. Work week has been really exciting with a lot of really good news and celebrations and various different opportunities. So I'm really excited. Things are going great.
Wow. Summer at work and summer at home. What is not to like? Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy week. And thank you. I know that it's hot in New York, just the same as it is here in the UK. So thank you for turning your air conditioning off for half an hour so that we can make sure we've got the best audio quality possible for our listeners and our viewers today. And today, Radhika, I'd like us to talk about what it takes to lead cybersecurity at a global financial services firm in the age of AI, from the pressures you're navigating right now to the journey that's brought you here, and I know it is quite a journey we're going to talk about today, to where you think the CISO role is headed next. How does that sound for a plan? Is that okay?
That sounds amazing.
So, first of all, what can you tell me about what you're doing at the moment? And if there's a big thing for you and for your peers in the financial services industry where you are that you're grappling with at the moment, what would you say that is?
That's actually a great question. Let me start with talking a little bit about Russell Investments, which is where I am currently. So Russell Investments is a global investment firm, right, with a focus on helping institutional and institutional investors to make good financial outcomes, financial decisions. From a cybersecurity perspective, I'm really very thankful that I'm currently Chief Information Security Officer here at Russell Investments, my focus really being threefold. And when I see cybersecurity, I see it with three lenses: protect the organization, enable the organization, and empower the organization. And let me unpack what that means a little bit, right, like for the audience. So when it comes to protecting the organization, as you can imagine, we are in a highly regulated industry. Our customers are putting a lot of confidence and trust in us, right, in terms of protecting their information, their data, their financial information. So protection is all about protecting and keeping everything secure, both from an organizational perspective and from our customers and for our customers' perspective. The second lens that I look at is enablement. And to me, enablement is all about how we can partner with business teams to enable them for the new innovations. And I know we will talk about AI and all that, how we can partner and enable them, right? Such that security is a business enabler, right? Like working hand in hand for the new innovations. And then empowerment is all about the whole education piece, right? Because at the end of the day, security is a team sport. So the whole education piece, empowering business with the right tools, the right organizational guardrails, so that everyday decisions that they're making it with the security lens, right? So security is not felt as like bolted upon, but as a way of their day-to-day engagement. So that's the three lens that I look at. And if I would have to pick one area of focus, I feel like this is going to sound like, okay, this is what I heard in my last podcast also, right? But I think that's how it is. Like today, everybody's talking about AI innovation, right? So just like any other organization or any other cybersecurity team, my team's focus has been AI enablement in a secure fashion, right? How can we help business to innovate, but at the same time innovate so that we are able to keep the guardrails, keep the promises that our customers rely on us for. So that's really the key areas of focus lately.
Those three lenses that you spoke about there, protect, enable, and empower, I think they're really important, putting AI to one side for just a moment, but with a security hat on, and I know this through the work that I do, it's very easy for people to almost become paralyzed by fear because of the threat that is looming over them. And goodness knows, we talk about all the different types of threats in cybersecurity to individuals as well as to organizations. And if that story isn't well told, if it's not received as it might be, then people might be afraid to step outside of their front door, metaphorically speaking, or from a business point of view. So that empower and enable, I think, is really important. It enables, I'm going to throw another word in there, which is enabling people to do things with confidence. Yes, there are bad things happening, but actually we can manage those so that you can step out the front door, you can launch new products, you can do this excellent stuff, but safe in the knowledge that, hopefully we're protecting you and enabling you and empowering you as a security function the best that we can.
Yes, absolutely. And what I have realized is how we can bake all this into the day-to-day life also, right? Because then it resonates with people really well, right? Like don't make security an ask coming just in their work persona, right? But today our entire world is like so much digitally connected.
Yeah.
So how we can ensure that people are thinking about all of these guardrails and how they can empower themselves even more, and how cybersecurity teams can help them in that journey, that really goes a long way, connecting the work and the personal life.
Yeah. We mentioned AI, of course. It didn't take us long to crack open the AI chest, as it were. And something I'd like to ask is, obviously, AI is changing how people in some job roles, particularly in software development, for example, but in many other areas as well, how they are working. But I'm curious how AI is changing, Radhika, who you find yourself working with in your day-to-day as a CISO.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I feel AI is not just changing from the technology perspective, right? Yes, clearly it has brought in a lot new technological advancements. But what it has really changed, David, and that has impacted or reflected on on the CISOs or the cybersecurity teams is now everybody is involved. And what I mean by that is everyone that you can think of in the organization today is using AI, right? And rightly so. But the main thing that has happened with this change is that it has enabled or removed the barrier of technology, right? So earlier, if somebody had a great business idea, for them to convert that idea into a real world application would had some barriers, right? In terms of learning the technology, being able to develop that whole thing. It was months, if not more. Now that whole thing has shortened to just a couple of hours from idea to a production quality deployment of that idea to bring in real business outcome, right? So what that means is, in an organization, everybody is now an engineer, or how I like to call it, a creator of things, right? Like everybody's creating something, which is great, right? Because that enables to move business at a fast speed and thereby have great outcomes for everybody, the organization, the customers, and the whole ecosystem. How it changes the cybersecurity landscape is now everyone is a customer for us internally, right? Everybody who is creating something we want to ensure that they are creating something with the right confidence. They have the right guardrails to rely on. And like my day to day, I feel has changed so much drastically post AI, because now you are speaking with so many different teams, right? My like when you asked about my day to day, I had a little bit of a smile, because if I envision my calendar, each meeting is with a completely different team or part of the organization. I might be like presenting to the board in one meeting, and then talking about cyber risks and the threat landscape in the industry. The next meeting would be with the compliance and legal team, talking about the new
Mm.
regulations across the globe that are changing, right? And not just for AI, but from cyber, AI, privacy, and all that landscape. The next meeting could be with engineering teams to figure out how we can like unlock some of the things. So everything
Yeah.
is like so different. And the way I see this, what has happened is the CISO role has changed. I know we will speak more about it as we go on in the podcast, but that's really very, very empowering, because CISO organizations and cybersecurity teams is kind of that horizontal that gets to see across the board, across the organization, gets to see and work with people, right, to ensure that everybody is empowered and enabled to solve the business problems.
And what you've put, and you're right, I want to talk about the continued evolution of the CISO role as we go into the future, what happens next. But what you've just spoken about there very concisely is this evolution from being a technical role. That CISO might have come out, some CISOs might have come out of network security roles, over the last 10 or 15 years. But now there are so many interfaces throughout the business, and AI has kind of catalyzed that to a big extent. It's you've got a lot of people that you need to engage with, which I'm sure reflects in your diary, like you say. With that, with security showing up in so many different corners of the business, there is, and you mentioned it a moment ago, potentially a tension between wanting to protect all of these different stakeholders wherever they are in the business, but then slowing people down. It's a bit about being that accelerator pedal and the brake pedal, and knowing when to use each one of them. And do you have any examples of where that tension kind of comes to life, if you like?
Yeah. And the way I see this, David, is I don't see this as a friction, right? And that's what
Okay.
my advice will be to everybody, that don't see it as a friction. Instead, see it as an opportunity, right? And what I mean by that is like bringing the whole protect and enable pieces together, right? To see how we can be brought early on. When I say we, I mean, how can cybersecurity teams be brought early on, even from the ideation phases, right? So when somebody is designing something, trying to put together the architecture of something, are there blueprints that security team can share as a security reference architecture with the engineering teams, with the product teams, now with business? Because as I said earlier, everybody's creating now. It's how all that can be like shifted left. I think that's one really key that helps to reduce the friction. Another thing that helps to reduce the friction is also ensuring, like, oftentimes it appears as a friction also because people are maybe just not aware, right, of some of the guardrails that are required for like regulatory reasons or compliance reasons to protect ourselves, to protect our customers. So bringing that in partnership with other risk functions in the organization is a long way for CISO teams to go, right? So, for example, make compliance, legal, risk your best allies, right? Because everybody is like, at the end of the day, everyone's goal is the same, to ensure there are right business outcomes and ensure the right business outcomes are happening in the right guardrails. So empowering, working cross-functionally, all of that helps. I actually have a story, not necessarily an immediate story, but a story that I would like to share of how this helped, or this kind of a thought process helps. So this is a couple of years ago. I'm like kind of going back in the memory lane. A couple of years ago at an organization that I was at, and my team had really, the security engineers had really come up with a very innovative way of managing or helping teams manage and prioritize vulnerabilities. This
Mhm.
is like way back. I know now a lot of the industry is already has already like come a long way when it comes to vulnerability prioritization, not just relying on CVSS scores, but also bringing in the concepts of like exploitability, how like the criticality of the asset, what's really the risk on business if so and so vulnerability gets patched in like 30 days versus right away versus within 7 days. But way back, this organization, without taking any names, was way ahead, right? And even when, before the industry came up with all these newer methods, the organization had these methods. Now, the challenge or the friction was that the rest of the industry was still behind. So, from customers' perspective, they were like, okay, is this really the right way?
Right.
Because everybody else is still using CVSS scores and we are using CVSS scores. We have to provide our oversight, right? Like from a customer perspective. So, we need to understand how you are prioritizing as a team because now you have a new model to prioritize, and the go to market teams were getting like bombarded with these kind of questions. So I really pulled in the security engineers, the go to market team together to help them understand and bridge the gap between CVSS core to this internal, more modern way of prioritizing and ensuring that we are fixing the right vulnerabilities that need the attention based on the criticality or the impact to the business. And that whole conversation really helped because once we bridged that gap, like the whole friction was not necessarily about this model. The friction was more about communicating this model so that our customers understand this newer approach. And us bridging that gap, like the security team bridging that gap with bringing security engineers, bringing go to market teams, which are actually speaking with the customers, and then ultimately bringing the customer teams also along the journey, helped translate this into a much more desired, translate a friction situation into a much more desired business outcome, because soon then this became our product differentiator,
Yeah.
right? That,
Yeah.
hey, this team is doing something very differently. And now when I look back, I often smile because I feel like now the whole industry has caught up, right? Now everybody is doing it this way.
It's a lesson about change in a way, isn't it? And whether
Yes.
it's internal change or, in your example there, a change in a product or a service or something you present to customers, even if what you are presenting is so innovative that it's going to make a real difference because it's different to the norm, no matter how good it may be, you've still got a job to get people over the line to build up that T word, which is trust. And trust
Yeah.
can come in so many different ways. It's bringing them along on the journey, or it's everyone else is doing this. So, well, maybe we can trust if they're doing it, kind of peer group trust, that we should be doing it too. It's a multi-dimensional beast, isn't it?
Correct, correct. No, very true. And I feel like it's all about trust, right? And it's all about like bringing people together along the journey, right? I think that's what the security function is slowly becoming or slowly moving to,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not just about the node department or not just about technology risk. It's really about like looking at the holistic picture.
Speaking of looking at the holistic picture, let's take a step back, Radhika, or maybe a few steps back. You grew up, studied in India before moving to New York, I think just after the millennium or thereabouts. How do you look back now and reflect on that journey? What have been, I don't know, key moments or key decisions or key things that have happened during that time?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking me that. And you're right. Like I'm born and grew up in India. I moved to New York about 25 years ago. So I feel both feel like home now, right?
Mm.
And it has been like really an amazing journey. Like I think growing up in India, I would say that like the three, like if I have to think through and say the three things, right, that really have carried me forward, but the credit of getting those is goes back to India is education, the curiosity mindset, and the tenacity. Right. I
Yeah.
think those are the three things that have like stayed with me and like helped me progress in my career experience. another thing that also I would like to like share with the audience, because I think it has helped shape up my thought process both from a leadership and cybersecurity perspective, is being able to work in various different industry sectors and organizations and various different domains. So I started my career in engineering. Like many years ago, I
Yeah.
was a hardcore Java developer. I don't want to age myself, but that's how I started. And that has really helped me to kind of understand the landscape of what creators are coming from. Right.
Right.
And then across all this journey, I feel I have been of the era of or the generation that has seen many transformations. So I have seen cloud transformation, I've
Yep.
seen digital transformation, we have
Mobile as
seen
well.
mobile as well. We have
Yeah.
seen the regulatory landscape changing after the whole 2008
Yes.
financial meltdown in US, right? And now the whole AI revolution. I think the AI, what is the revolution? So
Yeah.
we are fortunate, like I feel very fortunate to be able to see all these various different transformations in various different sectors, be it financial sector, technology sector, fintech sector, education sector, because that helps bring in the perspective of looking at things from various different lens. So oftentimes when people think about experiences in like two different parts of the world, like often cultural diversity and things like that comes to mind. But whenever I think about it, I feel like it's really the diversity of thought process that has shaped my leadership, right? Because everybody is seeing things like when you look at like Asia Pacific or we look at India, they are dealing with a lot of different regulatory lens than what you see in US today, right? And things keep changing, shifting, and evolving. So having this global experience, both personally growing up and post that, like for past 25 years here in US, has really shaped from both technology perspective, applying the security lens perspective, applying the whole thing from a cross functional perspective. So that's what I think has really like helped me.
Yeah, and that's a really fascinating insight on the global perspective. Like you say, Russell Investments is a global organisation, so having not only the international view, but you've worked in many different industries as well. You know, you mentioned a few of the different areas there. That gives you a good sense of experiences, a good sense of empathies as well.
Yes.
As a leader, which is very, very helpful to have. And on that theme, from those early experiences, building a career and a life across two very different parts of the world. The world in which you've worked from a technology point of view has been traditionally quite male dominated. So I wonder how you reflect on that part of your experience and how or if things have changed to be a woman working in technology and technology leadership.
Yeah, so interesting that you mentioned that. I know, like back in the days, yes, like I have been in those rooms where maybe I was the only women in like one of the big technology oriented meetings. I'm pleased to share that things have changed, right? Like now it's like much better representation. But I would say not just from a gender perspective, things have changed. Like the way I like to look at it is also from like overall engagement perspective, things have changed. Meaning, especially like if I go back to like, because it's the top of my mind, like AI as an example, like
Yeah.
the whole technology barrier has been removed, right? So earlier, I think that used to be one of the barriers or hesitations, right, in terms of people from various different cultures or other areas from a diversity perspective to enter into the technology sector. AI has helped reduce a lot of that barrier, right? Because again, going back to education and curiosity, for somebody who wants to learn and who has a curiosity mindset, now you have your own personal AI, right? To help out and gain
Yes.
as much knowledge as you want and really to convert and build your ideas into actually working products. So a lot of that, like the technology enablement has actually changed, and I'm seeing that change, right, as I in the day to day life. I think like if I can connect this a little bit from professional to personal side of things, I think a lot of parents are also seeing that. So I am a mom of a rising seventh grader daughter.
Okay.
And I think she gets it from the DNA. Like both me and my husband are like STEM oriented. So she loves STEM. So that has never been a problem for us with her. But just the way this new generation is thinking. So this year in summer break, I enrolled her for like Python to see, okay, learn Python now. And but the way they're thinking and the way this generation is not about, okay, how do I code it or what language this is? They directly come with the mindset of, okay, what can I build with it,
Yes.
right? Like that's the right
Yes.
question to ask, that okay, what can I actually do with it, right? Not the syntax and those kind of things. And coming back to your question, I think these things have really helped and have helped change the landscape, and thereby allowing us as an industry or allowing us as an ecosystem to ensure that we all are able to leverage, from how I like to call it, the diversity of thoughts, because everybody is bringing their perspective and welcome and able to bring their perspective now without any technology barriers.
We've looked at the present and we've looked at your journey to the present. For the final part of our chat today, Radhika, let's take a look at the future. And what do you think CISOs should be getting ready for next? We've spoken about this evolution and how the CISOs have changed from being possibly technical type roles to all of the different stakeholders that you need to manage now. So what should they be getting ready for in the kind of near future, perhaps, first of all?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. And you're right. Like, I feel CISO role is one such role that has evolved a lot across the years, right? As you rightly put it, it started with like core engineering, core networking kind of skill set, right? Where we wanted someone who can only talk about technology or do technology. Then, as regulations caught up and things moved, and boards started noticing and getting interest into it, it became more like a risk story, right? How can CISOs translate the technology to the risk that boards can understand or business can understand? Now, with AI enablement, it has become like much more. It has become across the organization. So if I would have to put like one word, right, to how I see like the next stage of CISO, I think the next stage of CISO is really being an orchestrator, right? A CISO is really a person who can orchestrate really well because they have that view already through the existing programs or the existing protection, enablement, empowerment that they already run. Because of that, they have that view across business, compliance, legal, engineering, product, uh, procurement, risk. You name an HR, you name an organization, and the CISO team has already some program or some impact or some partnership with that organization. And now imagine each and everyone in that organization is creating something with AI. So I think a CISO's role is really orchestrating, bringing everybody together, because no one human or no one team can solve this challenge, right? That is ahead of us, which is how can we do all of this at the speed of AI, but securely, right? In a secure fashion, because ultimately it comes to trust, right? Ultimately it comes to trust. No matter which industry you are in, it comes to the trust that the customers put in the services or the products that you're offering them. So the CISO's role, I feel, is going to evolve into more of an orchestrator who can connect these dots, bring various pieces, like I like to call it as various pieces of the puzzle, bring all these departments and organizations as various pieces of the puzzle together to make the full picture, so that the full picture is a secure picture that enables or brings confidence and trust that the customers puts in any organization.
And I think that goes beyond, we often talk about CXOs in general the ability to translate between board level business objective strategies to the right, this is what needs to happen in order to make that happen, and vice versa, be able to translate the technical challenges into language that the board will be able to understand and act upon or make decisions upon. That's translation, but your word, very deliberately chosen, I'm sure, orchestration, is much more, you have that, or I can almost imagine you with the baton in your hand. Exactly. Coordinating, orchestrating. Now, of course, that's not something that you would be doing alone. It feels as though there are potentially 3 or 4 different hands on that baton at the same time, or 3 or 4 different batons, and you all need to be doing the upstroke and the downstroke at the same time. So who would you say in that case are the other key stakeholders that in the world of a CISO, as that conductor of the orchestra, which is the organization, who are the other conductors that you need to collaborate with very closely to make sure you are perfectly in sync and enabling the orchestra to do what it does and the audience to hear magical music happen? I've really gone with that metaphor, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I would say, like, all the business leaders, right? Like, start with business, because that helps understand the why on what exactly the organization is planning to do or approaching to do or wanting as an outcome. So all the business leaders, and then all the leaders of various different cross-functional things, that end to end has to work together, right?
Yeah.
So think of your technology and engineering leadership, think of product innovation leadership, think of compliance, legal leadership, risk leadership, even third-party risk and procurement leadership, because these days, like, we live in a connected world, right? Like, no one organization is also building everything just on their own, right? Like, we are so interconnected and interwoven that all these various different pillars together will really help, as you rightly put, right? Like, that symphony, right? Like, at the end of the day, you have like these multiple conductors, but let's not have these multiple conductors conduct in silos. Let's bring all of them together. And then that's the role that I see CISOs playing, because they already have these engagements with these respective conductors per se. So bringing all of them together on the journey so that collectively they all write the symphony for the organization.
I love a music metaphor because it can be so relatable, I think, for everyone. Thank you for sharing that vision with us. And I'm sure that the role of the CISO as this orchestrator, as this conductor, will be something we develop in the future. But thank you for now. There are some questions, Radhika, that we ask every guest on the show before we let them go. And the first one is, well, what's your CXO leadership secret? The show's called CXO Secrets, so I have to ask, what is the trait or habit or quality that you believe helps you to do what it is you do today?
I would say being curious and asking questions. I think those are the 2 qualities that I tend to like rely on and has really helped me throughout my career. And I would encourage all leaders to do the same, because that helps. Asking question really helps bring in everything that we spoke about, right? Like, in terms of diversity of thoughts, diversity or cultural things from various different parts of the organization. As your teams are composed, organizations work globally. So being curious, staying curious, especially in today's AI world, as things are changing so rapidly, and then asking questions, so that when you ask questions, that empowers everybody else to kind of be a part of the solution, thereby being a collective solution. So those are my 2 secrets, I guess.
I'm just going to develop one of those and see where it takes us, because you said be curious, fine. Stay curious. And I think there's a challenge there when you have been in an organization or with a cohort of people for a long time. Sometimes it almost becomes more difficult to take that step back and ask some of those fundamental questions. And someone who recently has come into a role or is kind of from the outside in, which is why consultants do what they do so very well, because they're coming in and asking some of those fundamental questions that no one around the table even thought to ask, because there's so much in the weeds. So staying curious, I think the key there could be don't forget to ask those obvious questions. Keep on being curious, no matter how long into the role you are.
Very true. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because yes, I feel like that's the key, right? Being curious in a new role is easy. But to your point, being curious in a role that maybe you have been doing for more than 3+ years or even longer is the harder part. But staying curious with that, right? Constantly looking to ensure how can I improve. Just because I've been doing some things this way for past couple of years doesn't mean it has to be the same way for next couple of years also. And I think that mindset really helps.
We do what we call a Pass the Question on this show, where we ask you to pose a question to a future guest, whoever they may be. First, though, we have a question for you from a previous guest. Aaron Getty, CIO at EOS Fitness, asks this question.
My question to you as a leader in technology is, how are you going to find ways to bring in that next generation of technology leaders and doers that seem like they may be limited based on either, what's happening from a macroeconomics perspective or, I don't know, chalk it up to AI, but how do we find the best ways to give opportunities to junior and strict kids that are right out of school?
Wow. That's such an interesting question, right? Because I feel everyone is thinking about this question, either professionally or even personally, right? As folks are raising kids. So amazing question, I must say. Let me handle the as a professionally part first, and maybe let me respond with an example, because I think it will resonate just based on the time of the year that we are in, especially in US. A lot of organizations and leaders have summer interns, right? So summer internship program is going on. And that is really the key, right? Because these days, summer interns that are here still going through their education, mostly their undergrad. And I'll take an example. I have a summer intern in my team, and we were chatting about, what project would resonate, which will help you understand what organizations are going on currently. And we actually have a real world example that he is helping us build, which is something that we spoke about in terms of bringing in the AI governance landscape. Right. And really automating it, and also we have also empowered him, staying with the curiosity and all that mindset, to also zone in on the newer technologies in terms of AI assisted technologies and things like that. So the reason why I took that example is I think it is upon us as leaders to clearly the roles are going to evolve, right? So much changing in technology and AI. So it is upon us as leaders to kind of figure out and help the new generation navigate of what their next focus should be, or how can we empower them so that they can utilize today's technological advancements, today's AI advancements to learn new skills, to apply those skills in the current landscape to help solve the current business problems, and also more importantly, how to ensure and nurture that the curiosity remains, right? That the curious mindset remains, right? Because that's the key. So I think that's one example that I can share from a professional side. I think from a personal side, as I said, raising a rising 7th grader. So again, going back to her example of being STEM oriented and Python and all that, ensuring as parents for kids who are still in that learning journey, how we can empower their thinking mindset to be curious. So if I take example, now that people or kids who are learning programming, how can they apply that knowledge to the problems that they know? So for example, how can you create something that helps you solve to find whether a number is odd or even, right? As simple as that. Okay, how can you create something that gets you an answer to that question? How can you apply what you know how to solve this to have a computer be able to tell you that answer? So those are like some of the mindsets that I think we as leaders, we as parents need to apply as we help the next generation to navigate this revolution as we are
Yes.
living in now.
And what question would you like me to pass on to a future guest on the show?
Nice. Nice. So this is the fun part, right?
Mm.
So I'm thinking, based on like everything that we spoke about today, right? I'm thinking I would be really curious from the future guest and like my fellow CISO or technology and business leaders to see what role they would see security leaders should play in helping organizations build the trust that enables innovation, especially in today's AI world, right? So if I have to repeat, I'll say what role business leaders, security leaders, technology leaders see security leaders can play to help the organization to build trust that enables innovation.
We're never too far away from that trust word, are we? It's always just around the corner, whether it's in security or whether it's in innovation or in so many areas. Yeah. Trust is so fundamental to it. Thank you for that question, Radhika. I look forward to putting that question to a future guest. But for now, for today, thank you so much for joining us here on CXO Secrets.
Thank you so much, David. I really enjoyed the conversation, and this was my first podcast ever, so it will remain in memory.
Well, it's been great to have you. Thanks again.
Thank you.